So the All Blacks have got 5 matches for their end of year tour. There are a lot of question marks around selections, who are going to be in the lineups, and in this video I'm doing my All Blacks XV that I think would be an extremely strong one for the November internationals. Now, I should clarify, this is not what I think they will do up against Japan. In fact, I don't think they'll go with this lineup throughout any of the contests, but we will have predictions for each of the matches a lot closer to the kickoff. But starting with my front row, this one is pretty self-explanatory. Number 1, Ethan de Groot. Number 2, Cody Taylor. And number 3, Tyrell Lomax. I think that they want to build a little bit of consistency around that front row, and that is exactly what they would do here if they did go with de Groot, Taylor and Lomax. They've had plenty of minutes throughout the Rugby Championship, so I think it would work quite nicely for the November internationals as well. In the locking duo, this is where I do have a bit of a change. Number 4, Patrick Tuipulotu. Number 5, Tupavai. Now, they will not take Scott Barrett out of the starting lineup for the November internationals, only in games where they're going with the experimental side. But I do think that the combination of Tuipulotu alongside Tupavai would be an extremely strong one for the All Blacks. Barrett off the bench is something that I really like the idea of. Having him come on later on and bring some physicality for the All Blacks, seeing as it has been off the bench that they've been really struggling throughout the Rugby Championship. So perhaps having an enforcer like Scott Barrett to go out there later on and really make an impact could be exactly what the ABs need. Now, like I said, Barrett will be in the starting lineup more than likely, but I do think that Tupavai did enough throughout the Rugby Championship to secure himself as that number 5 spot, so I would be a bit disappointed if they then went to Tuipulotu because of that experience. But it's something that maybe Scott Robertson would consider doing. In the loose forward trio, this is where I've gone number 6, Wallace Satiti, number 7, Ethan Blackadder, and number 8, Ardie Savia. Once again, maybe a combination that Scott Robertson wouldn't do throughout November. Sam Cane, this is going to be his last tour for the All Blacks. After that, heading back to Japan to Tokyo Sun Goliath. But there are still a few more games up the sleeve for Sam Cane to be able to really work hard for this All Black side and have a proper send-off from that All Blacks kit, seeing as he has brought up the 100, something that not many All Blacks do get to achieve. But I think that they also have to look towards the future for these November internationals, because yes, there's plenty of time before that next World Cup, and yes, you've got all of next year to be able to build your future combinations, but I'd like to see a teaser of what we could see in the future. I actually thought that would involve Peter Lakai being selected in the squad, but he was not, so I would go Ethan Blackadder, give him a couple opportunities at 7. If it's not Blackadder, it's Papali'i, but I do think that Sam Cane can really use his knowledge to help the side out, maybe coming off the bench in a couple of those slightly less important games for the All Blacks, and then really allowing that less experienced guy the chance. And that 7 jersey, Wallace Satiti, throughout the Rugby Championship, when given the chance, was absolutely phenomenal in that number 6 jersey. Savia seems to be sticking with number 8, so I don't see that changing for November, which means that Savia is the 8 and Wallace Satiti is my number 6 in the back line. This is where I've made a big change. Now, before the squad was announced, I did a separate video which did involve who I felt the All Blacks could go with in their starting XV based off my squad selection for the November internationals. At that stage, we hadn't really seen Cam Roigard in action, so I still had Cortez Ratama as the number 9. But just from watching Cam Roigard in a few games of the Bunnings NPC, that man is ready to come back into the All Blacks kit, and that is why I've gone number 9, Cam Roigard, number 10, Beauden Barrett. Now, Roigard is one of those players that, yes, he's been out for 6 months, but you wouldn't think it from watching him play. In his first game back after that long layoff due to injury, he scored himself 2 tries, and both of them were extremely handy. He's got a bit more size than some of the other halfbacks. He likes to get the ball out quickly, is willing to take on defenders, which is something that the All Blacks can also use to their advantage, seeing as their number 10, in this case Beauden Barrett, loves doing the exact same thing. So perhaps it could be a really awesome combination for the All Blacks to use for November. Now, the combination of Ratama and McKenzie, I don't actually think there's too much wrong with it, and unfortunately it probably didn't perform to the level that people were hoping for, but we also didn't really see it consistently, seeing as TJ Perenara and Damian McKenzie actually became the more used of the two combos. So there is a chance if they went with this combination, it would be extremely strong, and there would be the critique of McKenzie and Ratima's combo, but I do think there's also a place for that in the future for the All Blacks. Just in November, I hope we get to see this combo of Roigard and Beauden Barrett. Moving on to the centres, number 12, Anton Lienert-Brown, number 13, Rieko Ioane. Now, I have picked Billy Proctor, I would say about 7 times for the All Blacks in my XV, and they haven't. So I'm playing a bit of reverse psychology here. Rieko Ioane, he's had a couple good games throughout the Rugby Championship, but hasn't been anywhere near as consistent as people would expect for an experienced player like himself. But the chance of them taking him out of that 13 jersey, I do think is extremely slim. Now, Jordie Barrett will be back in that number 12 jersey. Just for the first couple games, he is unavailable, which is why I've gone Anton Lienert-Brown. In most cases for the All Blacks, when he's been given that chance in that 12 or 13 jersey, he has been able to perform very nicely, beating a lot of defenders and setting up the back line. We saw it in the second game up against Australia. He wasn't given many starting minutes due to Jordie Barrett and Rieko being the combination that they did want to go with, but I do think there is a spot for Anton Lienert-Brown, maybe not even just for the first couple games, but perhaps further on in the November internationals as well. Moving on now to the back three though. Number 11, this man has cemented himself as the left winger, that being Caleb Clarke, scored the most tries out of any player throughout the Rugby Championship. Number 14, this is where I've gone Will Jordan. Now that might be a bit confusing, seeing as we've actually seen more of Will Jordan at 15 in recent times, and in my original selection, I did have Jordan as a number 15. But that is because I had someone else out on the right wing. And due to them not selecting the man that I had on the right wing, it means that I've had to revert Jordan back to that 14 spot, with number 15 being Stephen Perofeta. Now, that might be very confusing. But for me, Sevu Reece hasn't done enough to be a strong 14 candidate. Mark Talia, they haven't tried out there on the right wing. So the man that I did have was Amoni Narawa. And I honestly think he would have really fit the mold for that 14 jersey extremely well, even though he's been playing 13 in recent times for the Bunnings NPC. He played a lot more on the wing throughout Super Rugby Pacific. Will Jordan, he's a class player. I think that he has to be the 15 in the future, but for now with their selections, it means that we're a little bit limited in terms of what to do with that right wing, like I said, with 2 out-of-form players being the only ones that we can select there. Stephen Perofeta, he would be returning from his injury layoff. He has had quite a long time on the sideline, but he was their pick to go up against the English at fullback, and I feel like that's saying something. The fact that they trusted him with that responsibility means I think that they'll go straight back to him once he is match fit. But of course, quite a bit has changed since then. Will Jordan is back for that 15 jersey. Out on the right wing, Sevu Reece and Mark Talia. I know that they'll continue selecting Reece for that right wing, but maybe this would be a better lineup, at least a little bit, until they add someone else out there on that right wing to fill that gap. But nonetheless, that is my starting side. Now, quite a few people do ask who my bench would be for these videos, so just quickly, in terms of the front row, with the squad that they have got, I would have Asafo Moore as the number 16, number 17 to Mighty Williams, and then number 18, Pasilio Tosi. I do feel at the moment he is that stronger option for the tight head prop. Number 19, of course, I would have Scott Barrett there, and I can see him and Tui Pelotu being able to chop and change quite nicely. In the replacement forward, this is where you've got the option of bringing Sam Canan for the late experience. Number 21, this is where I would have Cortez Ratima. Yes, they've got TJ Perenara going with the squad to the Northern Hemisphere, but seeing as this is also TJ's last crack in the AB's jersey, I'd like to see it be one where they take a slight step back with how often they select him and then give those young guys the shot. 22, this is where you have Damian McKenzie, and then 23, either Billy Proctor or Mark Talia, I think would be the best options to fill that jersey. But nonetheless, I do thank you all very much for tuning in. Do let me know who you would like to see as the All Blacks starting 15 for the November internationals. Now, of course, this is not based off a single game. This is in general, because of course different matches will call for different selections, which we will be doing on the channel, our predictions, as well as what we'd like to see for the matches as well, but only a couple weeks away from playing up against Japan. The All Blacks, they will be raring to go, and they'll be looking forward to 5 tough matches to close out their All Black season. But thank you all very much for tuning in. If you did enjoy, be sure to leave a like and subscribe, and I will see you all for the next one.